The Winnipeg police had contact with Tina the night that she was last seen, and they let her go.
Tonight, Tina Fontaine was just 15 years old when her body was pulled from the Red River, despite contact with police and social services after she was reported missing.
Gerald Butts seemed to have no hesitation in sharing the kind of information she hadn't felt free to share.
The Conservatives launch a campaign to let her speak, calling attention to gaps in testimony by Jody Wilson-Raybould.
Every single time, 100%, we have won.
And on the eve of court action that could ignite more protests, Alton Gas has engaged a fierce opponent. Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. A long-awaited independent report into the death of Tina Fontaine will be released on Tuesday. The report was prepared by Manitoba's children advocate Daphne Penrose. The final report will look into the public services that were provided to Tina Fontaine during her life. It will be released during a ceremony near Fontaine's community of Saugeen. Her body was pulled from the Red River in Winnipeg in August 2014, days after she had been reported missing. Raymond Cormier was acquitted in Fontaine's death in February 2018. Her death reignited calls for a national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. It also led to changes in the child welfare system in Manitoba. Fontaine's death also led to the re-emergence of the Bear Clan Patrol in Winnipeg, spawning numerous other patrols across the country. More recently, a 24-hour safe space in Winnipeg for youth was renamed in her honor. APTN spoke with Tina Fontaine's aunt, Thelma Favell, in 2014, 1 month after Tina's body was pulled from the Red River in Winnipeg.
Thelma, tell us how you felt when the police called you.
Surprised, hurt. And I just found out today that they've known for 3 weeks prior to them telling me yesterday. They told me that that there was a big mix-up, the night that Tina was, the very last time Tina was ever seen or anybody talked to her. The Winnipeg police had her in a car with a drunk driver. They took the drunk driver, but they let everybody else go. And they ran her name through the system, so they knew she was missing, and they just let her go. Hearing that they had to tell me because that I would be hearing it on the news that the Winnipeg police had contact with Tina the night that she was last seen, and they let her go. And that there's an internal investigation going on now, and he told me that the 2 officers are on desk duty until more things are found out about why they let her go, because they must have known that she was missing, because they had to put her name through the system, which they did, because that's how they found out that Tina was put through the system. And I don't know why the police let her go that night. I just don't know. And if she was drinking, why did they let her go? I tried different agencies to help me with her.
Nothing.
And she just ran, and she was only gone for a month and a half. That's a month and a half that we'll never get back. We'll never see her again. They had that opportunity to save her.
Twice.
And they didn't.
And we'll have more for you tomorrow on the Manitoba Child Advocate's final report into the public services that were provided to Tina Fontaine during her life. The Justice Committee will be convening on Wednesday to decide if former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould should be able to continue her testimony. The Prime Minister has not waived the solicitor-client privilege, which would allow her to speak about what happened after the cabinet shuffle when she was moved to Veteran Affairs. The Federal Conservative Party has just launched a website called Let Her Speak to allow Canadians to tell the Prime Minister why Wilson-Raybould should be allowed to testify again. And a law professor from the University of British Columbia says the Trudeau government is being bipartisan in not allowing her to speak.
I cannot see why more information would be a bad thing. We do know that there were certain things she wasn't able to share with the committee, and yet, of course, Gerald Butts seemed to have no hesitation in sharing the kind of information she hadn't felt free to share, particularly the circumstances around the cabinet reshuffling. So yes, I think that if Jody Wilson-Raybould is willing to do it, I can't imagine why you wouldn't want more testimony.
After years of delays, the government of Nunavut is ready to break ground on a new prison. It will replace the Baffin Correctional Centre, which is widely acknowledged as one of the worst prisons in Canada. The new jail will have 112 beds with separate medium and maximum security wings. The current jail was built for 66 beds, but has held as many as 115 inmates. Originally scheduled to be completed by 2020, a lack of bids to build the facility caused the delay until 2022. The new jail is expected to cost $74 million. Adam Capay, who made national headlines for spending 4.5 years in solitary confinement, is now facing a new charge. Capay was just released from prison in January after having a murder charge stayed. Capay was serving a short sentence at the provincial jail in Thunder Bay for carrying a weapon, a baseball bat, vandalism, and breaching court orders by drinking. During that sentence, he was charged with first-degree murder in the death of fellow inmate Sherman Quases. Those charges were stayed in January, and Capay was set free. Ontario Provincial Police now say Capay has been charged with one count of sexual assault with a weapon related to an incident around March 6 at the Lac Seul First Nation near Sioux Lookout. In British Columbia, the Lheidli First Nation have launched a lawsuit against Enbridge, the owner of a natural gas pipeline that exploded on their land last fall. Last October, a 36-inch pipeline ruptured, spewing fire into the sky. No one was injured, but almost 100 people were evacuated from their homes. The community's chief says they have never been given an explanation for the explosion or an apology. They're taking the gas company to court for damages and demanding that the pipeline be dismantled and removed from their territory.
This lawsuit is first and foremost about human safety. It's about ensuring the safe and proper transportation of hydrocarbons. You have to operate your infrastructure safely. You can't have it exploding. And basically, almost nothing happened. Enbridge, from the perspective of the community, acted as though it was business as usual.
On the eve of a court date, Mi'kmaq grandmothers have given a notice to evict Alton Gas from their territory. Alton Gas filed an injunction to remove Mi'kmaq water protectors who have blocked access to the site. Mi'kmaq water protectors have protested the project for the last 5 years. They are worried it will impact the Saibaganagadi River, which is important culturally, traditionally, and historically. Alton Gas wants to hollow out underground caverns to store natural gas. The process involves dumping salt brine into the river. The grandmothers say they are concerned environmental regulations are not enough to protect the river, and they are ready to hold their ground against the company.
Alton Gas needs to Google our history in upholding our treaty and our title, and they'll find out that every single time we have entered battle with the oppressor, every single time, 100%, we have won.
Coming up, First Nation in Alberta has signed an agreement with the province to grant them more autonomy over the child welfare system. That story more after the break. Here's a look at Tuesday's weather forecast starting on the East Coast. Snow and a high of +2 in Halifax, +4 in St. John's. -7 with snow for Nain, 4 below for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. -1 and sunny skies in Montreal, -5 for Saguenay. +3 in Toronto, London and Sarnia. In Northern Ontario, +4 for Sioux Lookout, +3 for Thunder Bay. -8 in Churchill, +4 in Thompson, God's Lake and Norway House. 0 for Winnipeg and Gimli, +4 under sunny skies for Brandon. +3 with a rain-snow mix for Swift Current, 2 above in Regina. +1 in Uranium City and Stony Rapids. Welcome back. It's common to hear the term two-spirit today. It refers to a person who identifies as having both a masculine and feminine spirit. It is used by some Indigenous people to describe their sexual gender and or spiritual identity. Sophie Claude Miller met with the Montreal TwoSpirit Circle and tells us more.
As an umbrella term, it may encompass same-sex attraction and a wide variety of gender variants, including people who might be described in Western culture as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transsexual, transgender, genderqueer, cross-dressers, or who have multiple gender identities. The creation of the term two-spirit is attributed to Albert McLeod, who proposed its use during the 3rd annual Intertribal Native American First Nations Gay Lesbian American Conference held in Winnipeg in 1990. The term is a translation of the Anishinaabemowin term Mizig-Manigowag, two spirits. We met with Matthias Jolly, known as Malus by most, and a spokesperson for the Two-Spirited Circle of the community organization Native Montreal. We wanted to know why a Two-Spirited Circle was important.
The awareness of the LGBTQ2 people in the communities is not very present in our communities, especially in Northern Quebec, in isolated communities. So they come here because of the discrimination over there, such as employment, housing, most of the time even disownment from their own families. So they can't really live an open relationship, open lives in their own community. So this is where they end up.
This is the case of Kijate Alexandra Veyat-Chizo, an Anishinaabe who is new to Montreal and joined the circle for the Pride Parade last summer and has been learning about our Indigenous cultures since then with the Two-Spirited Circle.
I was in a point in my life where I was looking for a purpose, like who I am. I was dealing with my identity. That was my first step towards like cultural appropriation, and towards my identity. And since then, I've met a lot of new people, and just try to, how can I say that, found myself again, and it helped me a lot.
The reality of two-spirited people in the communities isn't always easy, and many end up leaving because of their identity.
A lot of two-spirited people leave their communities and actually establish in major urban centers to get away from what they go through at home. So here is a place where they can have a sense of belonging, a sense where they can get respect, and where they can understand themselves and be among their peers.
Organized in collaboration with the Cree Women of EUSG and the Cree Health Board, the second Two-Spirit Conference will be taking place in Montreal on March 21st to the 23rd. The registration can be found on the Cree Women of EUSG's website. Sophie Claude Miller, APTN National News, Montreal.
And we'd like to hear what you think. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous news. Alexander First Nation has signed a memorandum of understanding with Alberta's Children's Services. The agreement will give the nation more say in how their children are cared for. APTN's Chris Stewart has that story.
It was a day to celebrate on Alexander First Nation. The reason? An agreement between the Alexander First Nation and the Alberta government. Chief Kurt Burnstick and Alberta Minister of Children's Services Daniel Larrabee signed a memorandum of understanding that gives power to the nation to work with Alberta Children's Services to determine what is the best interest of children and their families.
Alexander Family Services ensures that children and families receive the supports that they need when they need them. Ours is a partnership based on mutual respect and collaboration, and it is a model for how Children's Services can and absolutely must work with other First Nations in this province.
Lozella Arcand is the Assistant Director of Social Development in Alexander. She says these negotiations have been ongoing for 5 years. It was a long road to get here.
It's going to solidify our partnership with Children's Services to ensure that we as a nation are being truly consulted in terms of the well-being and being able to be a party to ensuring that our children are receiving the best possible services that they possibly can.
The Memorandum of Understanding ensures that children from Alexander cannot be placed in outside care without the permission from Alexander leadership.
No child goes to private guardianship with another family unless indeed the chief and council have signed off on that, because that relationship, that integral relationship and communication and collaboration has happened where we've jointly worked together to get to that point.
Chief Kurt Burnstick called it a great day. Alexander is the first in Alberta to sign an agreement like this. He says more nations will be following their lead.
There is some that are on the way because we're working with some of them. They've asked and reached out for us to help them, and we're more than willing to, because all the children in every nation are our children.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Alexander First Nation, Alberta.
A new film about a group of Inuit students who take up lacrosse as their community deals with the highest suicide rate in North America is set to hit theaters next month. But before it does, it will travel across the north. This weekend it debuted in Yellowknife, and our reporter Charlotte Mort Jacobs sat down with some of the team members and cast.
What are we doing? It isn't your average sports story. That's because the setting is in the harsh Arctic environment. The Grizzlys is based on a true story. In 1998, when the Arctic town of Kuluktuk was plagued by youth suicide, some students there joined a lacrosse team, transforming the community and saving lives.
And so we just screened in our home community. The last few days we had 3 screens.
Cast and crew were in Yellowknife as the movie aired this weekend, answering questions.
The real Vinny, aka goalie, and the real kids in the north, both the actors who are telling this story and the original Team Grizzly, who were so open and generous with their story, really wanted us to tell their stories as they were, to tell the truth. And my partners in the film, who are from Iqaluit and Kugluktuk, really wanted also to tell the story, because the feeling was if we tried to hide the truth, you're not really understanding what these kids had to go through in order to become the extraordinary people that they are today.
For everyone involved, the goal was authenticity.
The numbers will fluctuate on suicide rates throughout the Arctic, and a lot of the times it's devastating, you know, and I've lost a lot of friends, and I use that for motivation, and that was one of the hardest parts about it. Like, I can tell you that I just turned 26, and for every year that I've been alive, there's been a minimum of number 2 suicides per year since I was born. That those were people I knew or were close to or were related to, and that's the hard part, you know.
Emerald McDonald of Kuluktuk says she never thought she would star in a movie while playing her real-life neighbor.
We're being really careful acting because these are real people, so we're doing it carefully with so much respect to and having good direction.
But it's not about the awards. For David Tupalek, the original goalie for the Grizzly team, it is about inspiring others.
realize that there's help out there too for other people too, if they're thinking about the suicide part.
Shut your eyes. Okay, without looking, who's got the ball?
Clips from the film will also be used as school curriculum on mental health this year. Charlotte Warren-Jacobs, APTN National News, Yellowknife.
Time for another quick break, but stick around. There's more to come. Here's the rest of Tuesday's weather forecast, picking back up in sunny northern Alberta. +5 for Fort McMurray. +3 in Medicine Hat. 4 above under sunny skies for Edmonton. +9 in Tofino, Victoria, and Campbell River. +4 in Fort Nelson, Smithers, and Prince George. In the Yukon, -15 for Old Crow. +1 for Whitehorse. +3 for Fort Liard and Trout Lake, -11 in Norman Wells, -26 for Sax Harbor, 21 below for Pawlatuck. -18 in Baker Lake, -22 for Repulse Bay, -24 in Clyde River and Pangerton. Welcome back. Police seized nearly $80 million worth of cocaine at a New Jersey port last month. It was the second largest cocaine bust at the port and the largest in the state in more than 2 decades. Police seized more than 3,000 pounds of cocaine. It was found in a shipping container and had a street worth of $77 million. Now to a wall collapsing and an extremely close call for a man walking along a London street as he narrowly missed being crushed by falling bricks by just seconds. Surveillance footage shows the passerby making his way past the cafe, and suddenly a big chunk of wall collapses. Luckily, the man wasn't struck and he is okay. It happened during strong winds. At one point, the winds hit more than 100 kilometers an hour. Very lucky. That's your APTN National News for this Monday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and download the APTN National News app. We leave you tonight with the latest offering from Nui Janin, a new song written, recorded, and filmed with Swampy Cree students in God's Lake Narrows in Manitoba. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
We've been lost and confused, all on our own. There's so much we can do through what we know. Learn to live from the land, knowing our truth. I'm respecting the ways so that I never lose you.
I remember back when you were touched by the dark, couldn't run very far, now you're up in the stars. Had a tough time coping every grade, I was failing, I couldn't escape, then our love started fading. We're going through a lot, I'm feeling kinda blocked, the good memories are still in my thoughts. I'll do this for her, the words that we have to trust, so the hope comes back to us.
Get to know us before we show trust. It's time to own up, yeah, it can't be.